Hello everyone, it's a Dutch Master and welcome to this brand new The Sims 4 speed build. So today I'm building a house in the dunes, and even though that could actually sound like a really good scary movie, it is actually a house I'm building today because it's basically a house in the dunes. I've created dunes in The Sims 4 because we can now, because we've got terrain tools. Unfortunately, we don't really have a tropical dune-like world in The Sims 4 yet, but I've sort of tried to recreate it on this really large lot in what is the name of this? Brindleton Bay, I believe this is the world. And from there on I created sort of a cool minimalist modern house that actually blends into the dune really well. And personally I think that this one turned out to be really nice and sort of is architecturally sort of cool, if you ask me, because it is something you would actually see on like the Zine or Design Boom. I don't know if you know these websites. If you like architecture and design, you should definitely check them out. You probably know them then already, but these are like the biggest sites when it comes to news about architecture, with like really good photography of the architecture and like some cool like info about like the intentions of the architect or the artist or whatever. So generally that is really cool to read, and I actually check that like almost daily, just to come up with new inspiration and just to stay up to date with what is sort of going on in the world of architecture and design. And today I actually saw a house which sort of looked like this one. It had like a super simple shape, which this one will have as well. You'll notice that at some point. And generally it didn't really look boring, even though it had that basic shape, simply because it was done really well and you had like super good views over like the sea and stuff. And I believe it was built in the dunes as well, or maybe I just came up with that myself. But that is sort of the inspiration for this house, and I'm starting with only one part in the dune, but then I came up with the, in my opinion, good idea to actually continue it on over the dune, so that the house is actually going through the dune and continuing on the other side. And it's not necessarily a really big house, also because the last time I did a speed build I did create a really big house, and that caused some trouble with me not getting to upload it in time. And this time it should work out, and I hope this one will be on time. But however, the previous video was enjoyed a lot by all of you, so thank you for watching it and leaving your comments and liking, and also many people subscribing to the channel. If you're new, welcome. I do very many, well, not very many, but if I upload, I do speed builds in The Sims and every now and then in SketchUp as well. And I'm an architecture student, so I actually design all day long and think about buildings all day long. That sort of came about from this entire Sims thing, or it's probably the other way around. I've just been interested in architecture like always, and The Sims just allowed me to work on that. And then I decided, why not make this my career, sort of. Not making Sims houses, but making actual buildings. It's almost Christmas already, which is also crazy. I'm planning on still creating a Christmas build, which should be coming online some days before Christmas. Well, Christmas/winter build I'll probably install, or no, wait. Okay, I almost wanted to say that I wanted to install a winter mod or snow mod, but I only just realized that we do have seasons already, so I can just use seasons to have the snow look realistic, which is actually making it a lot easier, I realized, to create that build, so that's great. So that is coming probably sometime next weekend, and then right now you can enjoy this house. And like I mentioned, it looks like a dune, but I really want to have a world which is super tropical and sort of has this dune look just all around, like the islands or around the world, simply because I personally really like that style. And I can imagine sort of, if I would build my dream house, I think it would be not necessarily looking like this, but it would be in sort of an environment like this. Also, looking out of the ocean is just really, really cool, if you ask me. Simply because that gives so much freedom, and it just looks so cool and so calming, I guess. So therefore I also made this entire house out of glass, simply so that the views like onto the sea and the surroundings are optimized. However, it is sort of like on a low side of a dune, so that it's also covered from wind and sort of like secure in the dunes. But the idea is that if you're standing up and also maybe sitting down, you can still see right over onto the ocean, but still having that secure feeling between the dunes. And then for the facade, I decided to sort of do something a little bit more interesting, simply because the shape is very easy. It's got like a super simple roof, which I had in mind to have like solar panels on it, simply because I can imagine that that would be the case for a house like this. It's sort of eco, maybe even like self-sufficient when it comes to like energy. So therefore I used this roof pattern, which not everyone might like, but personally I thought it looked sort of cool. And the reason I used it is also because the house that I used as inspiration, which I should probably show now, but I don't really know what house it was anymore, and I'm not actually putting the picture in the video, but yeah, I'm just referring to it all the time. But that house actually had a similar kind of roof, so therefore I thought, why not just put it on this one as well, because I really liked what it looked like. And on the roof there's also really cool skylights, which actually create such a cool effect inside when it comes to like lighting. You actually see it right now a little bit already, but you'll also see it in the end at the overview when I'm just showing around the interior, that it does create a really cool lighting effect. It also causes the rooms not to actually be closed, I believe. They're still open, but it didn't cause any lighting problems, which is really good. And maybe they fixed something for that, because normally when you don't close off a room, it actually sees it as an outside place, and that means that the lighting doesn't really work. If you add any lighting, it doesn't really light up the room. You really have to add super many lights in order to get sort of a light environment. But this wasn't the case. Now maybe they've made like a change that in case you leave a hole open in the roof, because that's what you do when you create those glass roofs, that it doesn't really matter for the lighting, and you can still light up the building really well. But I don't know, it looks cool. I'm happy with that. And generally, I realized that I'd forgotten to add glass roofs on like my last building, the celebrity mansion, and I only realized while I was like editing that it would have been sort of cool to have added those. So I thought, I'm bringing them back into this house, and they really suit this house as well, because otherwise the roof would be way too boring. But adding that like a regular but still sort of regular placement of those glass roofs sort of adds a cool effect. And I want to stress again how happy I am that we've finally got terrain tools, because without terrain tools this wouldn't have been possible. Literally, without any hills you can't make dunes, of course, obvious. But still I'm super happy with it. I still sort of miss the Sims 3 terrain tools, but I don't want to be too critical. I must say it works really well. I really like how the terrain actually stays the same, and you can actually play around with it a little bit by like pushing up and down the foundation, and then if you decide to remove it all, the terrain is still the way it was before, which is really cool. But even though at the same time you don't really have to make sure that the terrain doesn't get in the way of the building itself, but this also makes that it is a little bit more limited, and you can't do as much as you could in like The Sims 3, where you could create like foundations attached to walls, which I really like, because in that way, for instance, I could have at some point actually made the dune even deeper, and there actually create an entrance into sort of a cellar area under this house, or even have created like an entire second floor for the house, because at this moment that is not actually possible. But nevertheless, it's still a lot better than having only flat lots, because that truly did get sort of boring after a while. So super happy about that, and I really like how you can actually make it blend in and stuff. That is just a really cool tool they've added. And also, I'm sort of interesting when we're actually getting new packs, because we have recently gotten Get Famous, of course. That was like only a month ago, I think, or 1.5 months ago by now. However, we haven't had any announcement of like new game packs or stuff packs or expansion packs, which is sort of obvious. Often they don't really do that in Christmas time, probably because then it sort of gets forgotten because of all the Christmas hype. But I did read on Twitter that one of the sim gurus said that they were working on something he was really excited about. So I'm interested what that is. Maybe it's like something really new, or like a crazy new addition again, just like Terrain Tools was, or maybe just a really cool expansion pack. And I guess it's clear by now, I'm stressing it one more time, that I really hope that it's tropical, because tropical is just the thing, the way to go. Just at least a really tropical world. I mean, that is just really cool. But I think with like all the terrain paint, it ended up sort of looking like a dune and sort of realistic. Not too much hilly, sort of. I would have liked to add like more dune plants, because normally dunes can only be formed because of those plants, because the plants hold the sand and it makes sure that the sand just doesn't blow away all the time, but it gives it some strength, sort of. But I didn't find the right color for like those dune plants, and also not really the right height. There were some Jungle Adventures plants, but those were way too bright green, and as you can see, the colors of this house are sort of pastel colors and sort of really bright and light, and those were like super bright green, which didn't really match the house, so I've decided not to add that. But those are like the right shape and the right size and stuff, but just not the right color. But oh well, we can't have everything, I guess. And also for the interior, by the way, I decided to just really think about it, and I've decided to create a sideline throughout the entire house. On the full left side, you've got an indoor pool, which is really cool. You might wonder, why do you add an indoor pool? Well, my idea was that it was sort of cool to add a pool, but to sort of justify it, I thought, you know, those people will probably be swimming in the ocean all the time, because there's probably a path from like this cliff down to the beach, probably a private beach, something like that. And then they probably want to just swim inside whenever the weather is bad. So in that way they can swim in the sea or the ocean when the weather is good, and they can swim inside when the weather isn't that good. So that was sort of the thinking process, and also it just really fitted well to have a pool on that side. But like I said, you've got a sideline all the way throughout the two parts of the house, actually, because if you want to go from the bathroom to from the bedroom to like the kitchen, you've actually got to get outside, but because it's covered, that doesn't really matter, I guess. By the way, here I'm starting that interior. Actually, I wanted to really go for some artsy interior, but therefore I also tried those different dining chairs, sort of, but that didn't really work out. So yeah, I've sort of gone for a combination of sort of artsy / colorful / still modern and beach-like. Yeah, it's just a blend of everything. But it sort of looked cool in the end, I guess. By the way, leave any suggestions for future builds in the comments, because I always really like to get suggestions. And I believe I actually saw one of this suggestion come by recently as well. So, you know, just leave any suggestions you've got for really cool builds. Also for maybe famous builds, because I started with what was it called? The Lego House by Bjarke Ingels. I started that series where I was building like famous actual architecture, like architecture that's actually existing in the world, sort of, as you can probably understand. Maybe you've seen that video. Not actually not many videos, many people saw that video, but honestly I think it's a really cool one, because I'm actually building a house out of Lego blocks, or at least it's in The Sims, so it's not literally out of Lego, but it looks as if it's built out of Lego blocks, and that building actually exists in like real life. It's built in Balloons, like the birthplace of Lego. But yeah, the idea was that it would be a series, and people were super excited about it, but not very many people watched it, so therefore I felt like maybe it's not the best thing to do. But also I didn't really know what other famous buildings from like architecture I should create, and I'm not looking, you know, you can suggest the Opera House, but it's like impossible to create in The Sims. You can try, and it's probably looking sort of funny, but it doesn't really look realistic, and it doesn't really look like the building. So it should be realistic, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like the most famous building either, as long as it is like a high quality architecture, sort of, so that those who enjoy architecture, which are probably many people watching this channel, that they also get some new inspiration and some new cool buildings, maybe get to know like new architects that they can look after in the future as well. So that's sort of the idea I had. Yeah, it didn't really get off the ground yet, but maybe in the future. I have one building in mind that I still really want to create, which is going to work really well, I think, or at least I can imagine that it will work well. And in real life, it's a really cool building as well. I haven't seen it like in person. It's also in Denmark, and it's also by Bjarke Ingels, and that's the reason I haven't built it yet, simply because I don't only want to build Bjarke Ingels, and even though he's one of my favorite architects at this time, I also want to sort of like do different architects before I get back to him again. And like I said, also one of the reasons I wanted to do this series is so that people get to know more like about architecture and about architects, and getting back to the same one doesn't really, you know, stand strong in that. So if you've got any suggestions or like cool buildings, whatever, let me know, and then I'll, you know, get into that, I guess. And also really want to upload a SketchUp speed build again, but because I'm like working on architecture so much recently, like regular architecture, I'm not necessarily in SketchUp that much anymore. I'm more in like Revit and Rhino and stuff, and Grasshopper. But yeah, therefore I feel like I'm going to think way too much about the design I'm going to create, or at least I cannot really create just a random design anymore that is not based on anything. And in The Sims it's easier because at least you've got like the location set already, and you know, you've got like super many limitations, so you can't literally build everything. In SketchUp that's not the case, you can literally build everything, and that makes it sort of hard. And also I'm getting way too much of a perfectionist with SketchUp, so therefore I'm probably going to spend way too much time and on like details and stuff, and therefore it doesn't really work. But there's one coming, I think. I'm not too sure yet when, but there will be a SketchUp video at some point, maybe even still this year, maybe even before Christmas. But don't get your hopes up high, because you know how it goes. Often I don't upload like a couple of times a week anymore, unfortunately. But I'm not getting into it because people said I talked way too much about that in the previous video, which I can imagine. I did talk about it quite a lot, but that's just to, you know, keep you up to date a little bit. Well, by now I've also built the bathroom already, which turned out to be nothing. Oh, I should have actually added tiles in the bathroom, because now I see that we've only got wood, and that doesn't really look that realistic. But now I realized that I actually never add like the washing machines in the houses I create, even though it is sort of realistic to have a washing machine, of course. Definitely in a house like this, which isn't that big, so they probably don't really have an actual servant or something like that. You never know, but probably, well, they've got a pool in their house, so probably they've got someone to do the cleaning, but in that case you still need a washing machine. And then I realized that it would be sort of cool to create some kind of studio. Now it looks like it's a YouTuber studio, but yeah, I guess you can turn it into whatever you want. You can even make it like an extra bedroom. But for now I thought it was cool to create a studio, you know, with a green screen and many screens, and using those new Get Famous objects, because yeah, I'm not too much into Get Famous objects, if I'm honest. Some of them are cool, but they're not really my style. And then I get back to the spa day items, which you're looking at right now. And man, that might actually be my favorite pack of all time, simply because the items in the pack are so cool and so spot on when it comes to like what they look like, and they're just really match well, even though they're not, it doesn't necessarily get boring or stuff. And it's Japanese, like, or at least Japanese inspired, which makes it sort of cool, because Japanese design and architecture is generally just really cool. So now I'm adding some last details here and there, just to finish it up. And all the time I made sure that that side, or that like viewing perspective from the pool all the way onto the end of the living room would be unblocked, so you could actually watch all the way through like the windows, and actually in the end also see the ocean behind, which I can imagine in real life would look really cool. In The Sims it worked out well, but not as good as it would in real life, obviously. So yeah, thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed watching it. I've actually got no idea what I talked about all these 20 minutes. But anyways, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments if you did. Also leave any suggestions and don't forget to leave a like. And then I hope to see you back later.